From the heart of Central Florida, you're listening to the most electrifying show in media. A Neighbor's Choice. I'm your host, your neighbor, David Gronowski. So glad to be back with you live for another journey through the news. Of course, today, it's a big story today. Continually, we're seeing a horrible thing unfold around the globe. The terror attack at the Kabul airport, suicide bomb, it hits a crowd. Second blast, rocks hotel. 12 troops killed is the number we have, 15 wounded. ISIS claims responsibility, and the U.S. is sharing intelligence with Taliban. So it's interesting, ISIS always shows up whenever America is looking to wind down its presence in the Middle East. Isn't that strange how they always just show up with their brand new Toyotas and Hollywood production values? Man, frickin' ISIS is, they're always coming at the worst time ever whenever we're trying to withdraw. You know, they popped up doing stuff in Syria when people said they didn't want to be involved there. And now they pop up here with just a few days to go before we're supposed to be completely out of Afghanistan, according to Biden's August 31st deadline that his wife told him to stick to. So that's what we're dealing with here. And it's a horrible thing. And it's something that a lot of people have been bracing for, unfolding carnage, because of how incompetent the American withdrawal plan has been, or lack thereof in terms of a plan to get out of that country after $2 trillion. They had no idea how to leave, you know. After $2 trillion in 20 years, they've enriched so many people, you're not included. They used your children to go off and fight a war for contractors to make money off of. Just like they want to use your children for their cronies to produce rushed experimental drugs, legal immunity attached. And they want to be able to put those in perpetuity in you in order for you to get into your stores or do business or feed your family. What a disgraceful, despicable bureaucracy we have that just shamelessly gets it wrong over and over again on everything that they pretend to be the only game in town for. Public Citizen reports defense stocks during the Afghanistan war. Lockheed Martin had a 1,236% return. Northrop Grumman had a 1,196% return. Boeing had a 975% return on their stocks during the Afghanistan war. General Dynamics had a 625% return. Raytheon, 331% return. And they say the military-industrial complex got exactly what it wanted out of this war. They got what they wanted. Meanwhile, Darren Beatty at Revolver.news, he says, where's the best information on the relationship between ISIS and Taliban? The U.S. media is going to try to sell them as allies. And a commenter says they're bitter enemies. Back in 2018, Taliban wiped out the Islamic State in the Jawzjan province to the point where surviving Islamic State fighters sought refuge with the Afghan government, who treated them like honored guests, in the words of the New York Times. This is in 2018. So the U.S.-backed Afghanistan regime treated ISIS like honored guests, and now that the Taliban's in charge, terrorists are attacking, killing U.S. Marines with days to go before they're supposed to be out of the country. It's a sad day. We've been having people on since the beginning of this show telling us we got to get out of there, and we got to do so in a smart way that makes sure you don't leave an utter disaster. People who have spent their entire lives, the last 20 years, trying to help the American people do their nation-building experiment on Afghanistan are now left. And they left, apparently, their equipment with the names and database and information and location of all the people that they worked with. Why would you listen to this incompetent government about what you should put in your body for health or food or medicine? They can't even get their freaking allies' names and information off of the computers before they leave. It's like the Keystone Cops or something. You're the most incompetent fools you could imagine. And you listen to these stupid punks about what to do for your health? Who in the world would listen to these people? Who? People possessed by ideology and groupthink, apparently, who've lost their sense of self. That's what we see going on today. I've said this before, that this show is a kind of political exorcism. And you say, oh, you're being flippant with the word. No, I'm not. These ideologies possess people, and they make people do really evil, stupid, wicked things. And the things that come out of people's mouth is so predictable. There's like no human agency left in them. It's just pure regurgitation of hive mind narratives. We must stay in Afghanistan or else they will come over here. We must fight them over there so they don't fight us over here, says the same people who now want to bring everybody from Afghanistan over to America. You think those people who are incompetent enough that they leave military equipment and technologies and thousands of guns and thousands of the most advanced technology, they leave American citizens, they leave American allies, they leave American soldiers, and they just bumble their way out the door? And they leave all their database of information and names on computers for all the people who work with them so they can be tortured and assaulted by the people who take over Afghanistan? You want those incompetent fools to tell you what to do in your life? And then you got Anastasia Palaszczuk of Australia saying a dedicated regional quarantine facility will be built at the Wellcamp Airport near Toowoomba. As we contend with the dangerous Delta variant, we need fit-for-purpose quarantine facilities. And as Daryl Cooper from Martyrmade says, if Orwell wrote a novel where people were going to be herded into quarantine facilities, even he would have thought Wellcamp was a little too on the nose for his theme. These people are ridiculous. And yet they persist in telling the world how to run their lives. And we're supposed to all get our little passport brought to you by their cronies. And I don't understand, what's it going to take the folks who watch CNN and NBC and ABC and CBS and actually believe that garbage drivel to wake up to the fact that the same lying groupthink that let us get scammed over and stay in Afghanistan for 20 years as these cronies who were sponsoring the experts. There's a revolving door relationship between the military companies and the Pentagon and then the media. How come they couldn't stop and think, hey, we don't want to be over there anymore? These are not honest experts. These are dishonest people. That's the same type of mentality that's leading them into a biomedical tyrannical state the world has never seen before. Because people just believe, oh, well, they're an expert. They can do whatever they want. They're my God. That's what the way these people think. They've got kids in a picture in Wildwood Elementary in Minnesota practice the zombie walk to keep them safe as they go to the cafeteria. That's where they have to stick their hands out in front of them stiff like zombies walk like in Hollywood movies with their masks on, I guess so that they have that much distance between them as they walk in line. This is insanity. This is like Abu Ghraib or something in the making. It's like, this is how you get people ready for such a disgusting, dehumanized world where Abu Ghraibs happen, is by putting them in masks at 3 years old and making them walk like zombies in a line to get garbage seed oil sludge food. What a disgusting place this place has become. What an embarrassment. Why do people not care about their kids? That they let them get this kind of stuff. They're too busy chasing money and attaboys at their jobs, working, trying to get rich that they can't take care of their kids properly with homeschooling or some kind of honest, good, decent micro school or Christian school or something. Who could send their kids to this stuff and actually like live with themselves? Despicable stuff. Meanwhile, let's look back at the Washington Post story from 2012, August 7th. Pfizer agrees to pay $60 million to settle foreign bribery case. Pfizer agreed Tuesday to pay $60 million to settle charges alleging that some of its foreign subsidiaries bribed doctors and healthcare officials in order to gain regulatory approval for the company's drugs and boost sales in those countries. The SEC and the Department of Justice, which brokered separate settlements with Pfizer, said, you see this? Same company that we're supposed to now do endless boosters from with total legal immunity. This is the dumbest corporate fascist scam I have ever seen. And I cannot believe that grown adults are stupid enough to believe this stuff and take it seriously. It just shows you the folly of man, the depravity of man, and the stupidity of mankind. And these people are possessed with such hatred. The ancient world would call it spirits. We call it hive mind, groupthink, ideology that's training them to dehumanize and hate people who don't take the stupid garbage products that they're wanting to force down 6-month-old kids just to go back to society. These people are paralyzed by fear and hatred. And we cannot play back into that same game of mimicking that hatred, but we have to be able to call it out for what it is. A paralyzing stupor of groupthink and hatred. I don't see people who are not wanting these products forced down them. I don't see them gleeful at every story of someone being sick or hurt with these diseases. We mourn the people. People who are skeptical of these drug mandates, we mourn every time we hear of someone who has an adverse reaction or a lethal case or a horrible disease from having these experimental products. But you don't get that on the other side. The other side, and I don't want to have this other side game, but it's true that this Borg, this unthinking Borg that these stupid corporations and governments are trying to create, they think they're awakened, but they're the most asleep people in the world. They get excited at the thought of people being punished with bad diseases if they don't take their little groupthink ritual product. It reminds me of this letter that people have been sharing around on social media and stuff. It says, "Dear FDA, thank you for allowing Scott Gottlieb to be the commissioner of FDA and then allowing him to profit from Pfizer, the drug company." Well, that's all of them are like that. They all have a revolving door relationship there. "Thank you for telling us the risk of coconut oil and recommending GMOs and canola oil instead. Synthetically processed oils over natural God-given coconut oil. Woo, almost close call. Almost ate something healthy there. Thank you for recommending Frosted Flakes over fruit. Of course, dead food in a box coated in sugar would be healthier than enzymes and fiber-rich, nutrient-dense, delicious food. What was I thinking? Thank you for the blessing of artificial sweeteners with toxic effects instead of having natural, God-given sweeteners. Thank you for processed dairy loaded with hormones and antibiotics. Thank you for red dye number 40, yellow number 5. Thank you for the synthetic preservatives, additives, BHT, palm oil, high fructose corn syrup, and so many others, so that our foods can last on the shelf for up to 20 years. Awesome. It feels so good to not have a government agency. It feels so good to have a government agency that is not influenced by special interest money, that simply looks out for the greater good of America and the health of the people. So a little meme thing circulating around, but, it gets to the point that we have these discredited class of failed, fraudulent, fringe experts running the show and making a holy hell mess out of everything. Let's take a break and return in just a moment.
A lawsuit is not something that anyone looks forward to. It's a stressful process. There are attorneys in Tampa Bay that keep clients well informed, creating less stress. That law firm is Catania. Personal injury law is defended with full disclosure. There is no guessing game. If it's an auto accident, medical malpractice, nursing home negligence, unsafe working conditions, or motorcycle accidents, the law firm of Catania will handle the process worry-free from start to finish. Many victims don't realize they have a claim for the loss until they talk to Catania. They only represent private individuals and treat every case as if it's going to trial. Putting families first is more than just a slogan. It's their way of practicing law. It's a commitment to you. Remember, they don't get paid if you don't get paid. So go to Catania.com. Over 28 years in practice. Catania, personal injury, auto, and motorcycle accident attorneys. Catania, putting families first.
Office Tampa. Not attorney spokeswoman.
Hello, this is David Gronowski with A Neighbor's Choice. I've got a mission for you. I'm a big believer in eating family farm-raised, high-quality, grass-fed beef. That's why I'm a frequent customer of White Oak Pasture, a 6th-generation beautiful farm in southwest Georgia. Support sustainable, delicious meat of the highest quality. Ask for White Oak Pasture's beef at your local grocery here in Florida, or go to whiteoakpastures.com, and first-time customers get 20% off on purchases with our exclusive coupon code NEIGHBOR. David Gronowski here. Let me tell you about a man named Gabriel. Every day, Gabriel puts on his boots and drives across America to make sure our store shelves stay stocked with the food people count on. See, Gabriel served our country overseas. He knows that America stands for freedom, quality, and caring for others the way we would like to be treated. That's why when Gabriel saw food shelves getting low during the pandemic, he hit the road as a driver with Oakley Transport. In the land of the free, where no one should go hungry, we need heroes like Gabriel to help keep America fed. CDLA driving professionals. Join Oakley Transport today. Keep America fed. Visit oakleytransport.com or call them today at 1-877-8-TANKER. That's 1-877-8-TANKER.
Fighting high electricity bills in this heat? Call Insulation Plus of Tampa at 813-951-4374. Insulation Plus of Tampa will do a free 10-point attic inspection and show you how adding insulation and solar fans will lower the temperature, which helps your air conditioner work more efficient and last longer. Call today for your free attic inspection and get 10% off an attic solar fan and free attic stairway insulator. Call Insulation Plus of Tampa at 813-951-4374. That's 813-951-4374 and start saving money today.
So this is a terrible day as we hear more about this attack. The Columbia Bugle says our best killed and maimed because of the incompetence and stupidity of our worst. May God watch over our brave, welcome our departed, and bring peace and comfort to their families. And yet others are saying, hey, this is an example of why we need to go in there and do more, and that's end this war to make Afghanistan in the image of third wave feminism. They don't want it. They never were going to want it. But that's the con game that they sold the American people so they could enrich their friends who run their DC foreign policy in the media. So it's an utter disaster. They can't do anything right. They're an incompetent. This is what happens when you have an administration that wants to teach people that showing up on time, having merit, having achievement, having excellence is a form of discrimination and privilege and bigotry or whatever. Hard work is systemic supremacy, right? Racial supremacy. If you promote excellence, if you promote colorblind approach when it comes to hiring the person who's the best for the job, when you promote all those things according to this stupid, idiotic groupthink uniparty in DC, that's all evil. So this is what happens when those kind of fools who are at war with reality itself are getting things, are making things run. They're going to run everything into the ground. The question is, are you going to be gullible enough to let them keep screwing with your family and you, or are you going to take care of yourself? ReclaimTheNet.org says Israel hints that vaccine passports will in the future only be given to those who've had boosters. And we told you this. We even cut an ad on this on radio talking about this. We were saying it as a satire, but we knew it was coming. That's why it was kind of a sad satire that I was making, talking about life brought to you by Pfizer, where you got to get your little booster every month or every 3 months or whatever they can get away with. They'll get away with whatever they can get away with. These people don't care, man. They are sold out for mammon. They love money. They love power. They love control. They don't care. They believe their own BS. So they think that they're perfectly innocent in their little delusions. But look what they've done. The whole world is laughing at their disgraceful mistakes, and now they're reacting in horror as these incompetent bureaucrats in D.C. who think they're gods make another disastrous blunder with lives being lost today. Back in a moment.
Now we're hearing from the CDC.
Bad mandates can transmit it. If you're at high risk, it takes 2 weeks.
More contagious.
Confused?
Adapt to the virus.
You cannot will away the virus. High amounts of virus.
Run out and go get the vaccine? No.
Adds on to the risk.
The Pfizer and Moderna vaccines.
Talk to your physician.
The topics and issues that affect your life
Cannot afford another shutdown.
are heard here.
Americans across the country know
News, information, and talk for Tampa Bay.
Our most effective.
News Talk 1040, WHBO.
The commander of the U.S. Central Command, General Kenneth McKenzie, confirming 11 Marines and 1 Navy hospital corpsman were killed in today's attack outside the Kabul airport. Another 15 service members were injured. The terror group ISIS-K taking responsibility for today's twin blasts. ABC's Karen Travers is at the White House.
General McKenzie described the threat right now from ISIS. He says it is extremely real.
But right now, our focus really We have other active threat streams, extremely active threat streams against the airfield. We want to make sure that we've taken the steps we need to take to protect ourselves there.
He said that the military believes it's ISIS' desire to continue the attacks, and they expect that they will continue, and they're doing everything that can be done to be prepared for that. And that includes potential rocket attacks as this evacuation effort continues.
President Biden has been firm on keeping with the August 31st deadline for U.S. troops to leave Afghanistan. The president will deliver remarks in the next hour. I'm Michelle Franzen, ABC News.
News Talk 1040 Tampa Bay weather forecast.
Good afternoon. I'm meteorologist Alan Archer at your WHBO Weather Center, where our radar is indicating widely scattered showers, and we'll see developing thunder showers trying to come in from the southeast anytime this afternoon. A 45% chance with a high of 88, 20% tonight, low 77, stronger 55% Friday afternoon and evening with a high of 88, and more weekend storms, especially Saturday. I'm meteorologist Alan Archer, News Talk 1040 WHBO.
A Neighbor's Choice returns. It's important for us to not fall into this kind of myth of inevitability where we believe that this stuff is in stone, that we have to have these globalists and their authoritarian desires become inevitable as a part of our life. That's a fatal mistake that a lot of people who are free thinkers, independents, people with progressive mindsets, true liberals, classical liberals, libertarians, conservatives, independent thinkers, so forth, so on. That's the mistake they make in a lot of this, is that they believe, oh, there's nothing we can do about it. They have so much power. But you look at their little things. We thought California was a lock, but polls show they want to fire Newsom and replace him with a very conservative Larry Elder, perhaps. Now, of course, they have a dubious election system. They were just hearing that you can see in the little ballot, the way they've done the recall thing in California, that dictatorial little failed state over there, you can see when you're putting the ballot in, you can see if someone voted yes or no on the recall question without opening it. That's nice and convenient. We know how that tends to work, doesn't it? Right? We've seen this kind of stuff. But even if, Newsom is able to survive with his little rat tricks and his sycophantic garbage media, the fact that he's this vulnerable in this failed state of groupthink like California is a sign that their power is not inevitable. That people can unite together for decency and dignity and freedom, families, protection of the children, staying out of endless wars and supporting fighting for the same side as Al-Qaeda and ISIS around the world. We can stop this nihilistic nonsense. We can stop the attack on merit and this envy-driven ideological possession that continues to draw people into darkness. It's not inevitable. It may look bleak now, but we have to have confidence and we have to be creative. We have to make good art. We have to make good cultural engagement. We have to make good schools, good curriculum, excellent schools ideas, education ideas. We need to stay out of debt, declare bankruptcy if you have too much personal debt, and stay out of the system. You say, oh, I can't touch credit for 10 years after. You should see that as a blessing, as a gift, to stay away from this predatory system with the Federal Reserve System that doesn't care about you, just like this FDA and CDC. They don't care about the truth. That's why they tell you to eat garbage seed oils. Why would I listen to them for anything? They've been mismanaging diabetes, mismanaging cancer. Why would I listen to them for anything about this product that people are responding to, saying they are getting lots higher rates of side effects than any of the other products that the CDC has pushed out in decades? So why would you listen to this failed media complex? Why would you listen to these failed bureaucrats? Even, again, I always assume they're the best meaning, well-intended people in the universe. But their actions speak that they've done so much damage in their credibility. Why would we listen to them? They tell us to eat seed oils. They put seed oils, these vegetable oils, into every processed food you can imagine, every packaged good. And that has caused heart disease to skyrocket, diabetes to skyrocket, autoimmune disorders to skyrocket, Alzheimer's. All these horrible diseases have been skyrocketing because of government getting us to subsidize these toxic seed oil sludge waste products and putting them into food, and then encouraging us to eat them and stay away from ancestral foods. So why would you listen to the same government bureaucrats who tell you you can take this experimental product and you'll be fine, and give it to your 6-month-old kid and you'll be fine? We know everything about long-term. They don't know anything. They're just blustering. They're just BSing. They're fringe. Yahoo News says U.S. data showing rising breakthrough infections among fully vaccinated. This stuff gets you blocked and banned on places. These fascist social media companies, they block you and ban you for saying it. Now they're coming out and saying it weeks and months after. The intelligent thinkers who were paying attention to the actual science were saying this. Some 25% of SARS-CoV-2 infections among LA residents occurred in fully vaccinated residents from May through July 25th. Let's see the period. Let's look at it more from when the Delta was surging. Let's look at June to now and watch what percentage they'll come up with then. %, occurred in fully vaccinated. 3.3% were in partially vaccinated. And 71% were in unvaccinated individuals, according to that study. But like I said in this Reclaim the Net story, going back to this, Israel wants to put out a green pass so that people who've received the 2 doses of the vaccine and a booster shot, after about half a year, you have to get a 3rd dose. Otherwise, the vaccine loses its power. Nitzan Horowitz said, the Green Pass testifies that a person is safe in a certain way. So the moment we know that the vaccine loses its effectiveness after a certain period, there's no justification for giving a Green Pass to someone who hasn't gotten another dose. You see how this is going to work? And the new measure would not be implemented until the vaccines become available for all people over the age of 12. This could happen by the beginning of September. So that's what's going to be attached. They're going to try this everywhere they can possibly do it. And by they, I mean the multinational corporations, the nonprofits, the $1 billion, the Bill Gates Foundation, remember, he got his relationship advice from Jeffrey Epstein, according to NBC and all the other sources that praise him as a hero for your family's safety. Why would you ever get safety advice from a guy who's best friends with Jeffrey Epstein, hanging out with him after he gets out of jail even for the first charges that were a slap on the wrist. And meanwhile, while they try to continue gaslighting people into having to have this pass to get into stores, more science comes out making the case we've been making, because we've been following the actual scientific studies and intelligent people who risk their entire careers to go against the unthinking herd. Unheard.com, bombshell study finds natural immunity superior to vaccination. If the findings are confirmed, the implication for COVID policy will be profound. A major study conducted by Israeli researchers into natural immunity has found that immunity acquired via infection from COVID is superior to immunity from the Pfizer vaccine. Researchers at Maccabi Healthcare and Tel Aviv University compared the outcomes of over 76,000 Israelis in three groups: the doubly vaccinated, the previously infected but unvaccinated, and the previously infected with only a single vaccine dose. They found that fully vaccinated but uninfected people were significantly more likely to have a breakthrough COVID infection than people who had previously been infected and recovered from the disease. This study demonstrated that natural immunity confers longer lasting and stronger protection against infection, symptomatic disease, and hospitalization caused by the Delta variant, the authors conclude. The study is only published as a preprint at this stage and has not been peer-reviewed. Critics, including British immunologist Andrew Croxford, have pointed out potential limitations, but it has been described by infectious diseases expert Professor Francois Ballot as a bombshell development. If the findings are confirmed, the implications for global COVID policy will be profound. It would not undermine the importance of vaccination for more vulnerable groups in society. However, it would weaken the case for vaccinating children, despite the program being confirmed in the UK today, as they and the people around them would get superior future protection from contracting the disease. And it would pose a fundamental challenge to the singular emphasis on vaccine passports for travel and large events if unvaccinated people who have already had COVID actually pose less of a risk. These foolish people who are walking into the dumbest, idiotic, blatantly obvious exploitation of a crisis the world's ever seen. Let's replay the tape again. Fauci and his fools, who have a revolving door relationship with Big Pharma and the foundations that love all this new patented products, decided to give money to the Wuhan Institute of Virology to do gain-of-function research. And they were putting that money even during a trade war with that country when tensions were higher than ever before. Using our money to give it to an adversary to see if they could get the spike protein to enter into ACE2 host receptors in the human body. Then, lo and behold, and they were doing it because they said we wanted to be able to find a vaccine in case this kind of thing happened in real world. And then, whoops, it happened. And it came from that lab. And they lied and came up with bat soup and all kinds of fringe conspiracy theories because they're very low info, mid-wit type people. And it all became apparent that they were covering it up. So they unleashed this thing because of their incompetence or whatever. Goes all over the world. And then lo and behold, they put out this product. But they get to have cover because they can say, oh, well, hey, it was done by a Republican president. So it's like the anti-establishment brand approved it. So you got to take it. So they get him neutralized. So he's over there still telling everybody he loves the product. And then they push it out. They say, just get this product and it'll stop this whole deal. And they even at the WHO got rid of the natural scientific explanation or definition for herd immunity, which includes natural infection. And then they put it back in the website, but they still want to rewrite science in real time with their Luddite, corporatist, fascist political bent. It's like these are the same people who say gravity and Newtonian physics is white supremacy or something. So, I mean, these are very stupid people in general, the kind of ideology that they cook. But they've got a lot of money and they've got a lot of political coercion, and they're spending it all as much as they can right now to try to get you to get on board and submit. So they push this stuff and they tell you, take this thing and you can take the mask off. So everybody takes this thing, or a lot of people do, and then run off to the vacations, and all of a sudden, bam, this variant blows up. And then they say, well, it's only because of those evil, subhuman, unvaccinated people. They try to demonize people who don't go along with the group thing. This is what we've been talking to you about in anthropology for years. Anthropology shows this. Humans in a time of crisis and a plague or a famine, go look at Rene Girard's work. They get caught up in this hive mind mentality where they look for a monster to destroy, for a scapegoat class to beat on, to hurt, to wipe out, to eliminate if necessary. And we're moving on that path. And we're moving on that path because we don't know history, we don't know human nature, and we're arrogant and we're scared and we're blind as a society in many ways. And we're driven by fear. And so all that has to change. We have to bring out a countering signal of hope, reconciliation, forgiveness, empathy. We've got to be able to bring unity. I'm not saying it's going to work for everybody. We've got to try. Because I know the hardcore fans who really buy into the stupidity of CNN News and stuff, there's always going to be a small fringe group of that. But there's a lot of people who are moderates or kind of centrist about this stuff, and they can wake up if they see their neighbor as themselves, if they start to have their humanity and their compassion and their empathy restored back to their right senses. They can wake up from the mimetic scapegoat mechanism that wants to draw people in to do all against one. I mean, what's going on? You see what's happening in Sydney. In Australia, 9 News Sydney says from September 13th, NSW residents that are fully vaccinated against COVID-19 will be given new freedoms. Residents of hotspots can leave home for an hour of recreation on top of their exercise hour, while people in other areas can meet 5 others outdoors. Isn't this a scam? The whole thing is a scam. This is a scam. This is a total power grab. This is not in your best interest. They're not. If they're going to tell you, you only get, if you get the product that our corporate sponsors tell you you must take, we give you 2 hours outside of your home imprisonment. But you can meet 5 people, not 6. And you have to have masks on, and even outdoors, and you have to be socially distanced. You can't talk or anything. These people are pathetically embarrassing little wannabe tyrants. They're so stupid, though, that they don't even think they're going to be able to pull it off for long because of how incompetent these globalist hacks are. They're a despicable regime. They give you freedoms, totally contrary to what the founders built this country on. I don't know about Australia's founders. There's no government giving you freedoms. These people are drunk with madness and basically a kind of psychopathic behavior. You get to give your freedoms. We give you your freedoms. You get to get out of house arrest for 2 hours. This is a prison. That's a prison colony. They're back to being a prison colony. They're saying you get to have 5 friends if you take this product. And you know they're going to push out this thing with the boosters. So you will get denied your privileges if you don't get your booster. Then you go back to an hour or less of being able to go outside of your own home that you don't own, apparently. This is a nightmare. This is a disaster. These people don't know how to nation build anything. Absolutely crazy. And sad that people put up with this. But this is the hubris on display of human beings. But we can turn the page. And I think that this Afghanistan thing, as horrible as a disaster it is a reminder to the world, let's not listen to these foolish, incompetent, know-nothing corporate fascists, these globalists. You look at what the Taliban can beat them after $2 trillion. They don't have a lot of power after all. And they don't have a lot of competence after all. So maybe this is a wake-up call. This horrible disaster in Afghanistan is a wake-up call that we can abandon this stupid Tower of Babel globalist nonsense trying to create passports. And remember, Fauci has said explicitly he loves the way Australia does it. This is the man that trash media outlet, NBC and CBS and ABC, the same outlet, basically, CNN, they parade this man around who loves the idea of a country putting you in a house arrest situation and you're not allowed to get out but 1 hour a day and still got to wear a mask on outdoors. And that kind of sick, fascist, nanny state insanity is what that man is drooling for you to have in your country in America. It's a disgrace to this country. Let's take a break.
A lawsuit is not something that anyone looks forward to. It's a stress. There are attorneys in Tampa Bay that keep clients well informed, creating less stress. That law firm is Catania. Personal injury law is defended with full disclosure. There is no guessing game. If it's an auto accident, medical malpractice, nursing home negligence, unsafe working conditions, or motorcycle accidents, the law firm of Catania will handle the process worry-free from start to finish. Many victims don't realize they have a claim for the loss until they talk to Catania. They only represent private individuals and treat every case as if it's going to trial. Putting families first is more than just a slogan. It's their way of practicing law. It's a commitment to you. Remember, they don't get paid if you don't get paid. So go to Catania.com. Over 28 years in practice. Catania, personal injury, auto, and motorcycle accident attorneys. Catania, putting families first.
Office Tampa.
Not attorney, spokeswoman.
Are you ready to transform your career? Jess Smith was too. She was stuck on a job that was controlling her life, consuming her free time, and offering little opportunity for growing her pay. Then she found FinTech Mortgage Association, and she never looked back. FinTech Association makes home lending simple, and they take care of home buyers like family. Using technology to make everyone here, FinTech Mortgage Association equips each of their loan solutions architects with the tools they need to build a career with a schedule they control, a product they can take pride in, and an earning potential that is life-changing. Unleash your true potential. Join FinTech Mortgage Association. Visit finmay.com. That's FINMAE.com. You're in charge now. NMLS ID 1492187. Equal housing lender.
Hi, my name is Ryan Bourne.
And I'm Danica Bourne.
And we're the owners of South Coast Tax. We would like to thank our Lord for protecting us from evil. Psalm 91 states, He is my refuge and my fortress, for He will rescue us from every trap and protect us from deadly disease.
South Coast Tax are Christian-based tax accountants and attorneys who specialize in releasing bank levies, wage garnishments, and filing complex tax returns. We are the leaders in acceptance of offers and compromise with awesome results.
We are also a small firm who will treat you like family and not just a number.
Call us today at 1-800-TAX-1176 for a free consultation, and we'll take the time to explain all of the programs that you qualify for in order to allow you a fresh start.
In John 8:36, so if the Son sets you free, you will be free indeed. And one way we can achieve that is by being debt-free. So let us help you today. Call us at 1-800-TAX-1176, and together we can help achieve this goal by putting the IRS tax debt behind you for good. Again, that number is 1-800-TAX-1176.
A Neighbor's Choice returns. I'm David Gronowski here live, and we are looking at this fallout. It's a horrible situation in Afghanistan. We still don't have all the details about what's going on in the full totality. 12 U.S. troops dead, more injured in suicide attacks near Kabul airport. And that's breaking911.com. The civilian death toll is at least 60, with over 100 wounded. The Islamic State wing, known as ISIS-K, is believed to be responsible for the attacks. I mean, it's just totally disastrous. And there's some people that say, let's go back in there and spend $5 trillion more that we can print out of thin air, debasing our currency like every great nation that destroys itself by destroying and diluting the purchasing power of its own currency unit. It's a mess. And I like to keep connecting this back to the folly of the experts on the domestic front who want to create this prison-like state for us here with their corporate friends sponsoring the whole deal. They keep telling us we've got to take these things, put it in 6-month babies. Fauci won't be around when those 6-month babies are 30, might have problems. We don't know the long-term studies. We haven't studied them. Why are we going to listen to these stupid idiots for anything anymore? These same stupid fools. Fauci would be the hack that you tell him to go. If you brought him in, he'd say whatever. Yeah, we're going to be successful in Afghanistan, like President Biden said. You know, that's not his little specialty, but he'd say it. They're all the same. They're just little freaking empty suits. And people still believe this con artist stuff. Daily Mail says 7 News reporter Denham Hitchcock is rushed to hospital with extremely rare inflammation of the heart after getting the Pfizer COVID shot, but still urges his Australians to get the vaccination so they can get out of their prison state soon. He suffered racing heart, pins and needles, and dizziness over weeks. But they want to push this on people for no reason. So why are you going to listen to them when they tell you war will be perfect, nothing will happen? And then disaster. Take this product, legally immune, no problem. We just want to control you more, and this is our excuse. Nothing can happen. Why are you going to listen to these people? We'll be back in just a moment with Hour 2 with Jeff Deist and Dr. Yu. For now, Godspeed.
Your home for news, talk, and information. 1040 WHBO Pinellas Park. Tampa Bay's all new News Talk 1040.
It's the only way I get news.
From ABC News, I'm Michelle Franzen. President Biden is expected to make his first comments this hour on the twin explosions that occurred outside Kabul's airport today, killing a dozen U.S. service members and injuring 15 others. The commander in charge of forces in Afghanistan says 2 suicide bombers believed to be ISIS-K militants are responsible and says the U.S. mission to evacuate Americans and Afghans continues.
U.S. Central Command General Kenneth McKenzie reporting the Americans killed and wounded and promising,
if we can find who's associated with this, we will go after them. We've been clear all along that we're going to retain the right to operate against ISIS in Afghanistan.
The Pentagon saying the Taliban was supposed to pre-screen evacuees before they got to the Afghan airport checkpoint.
It was a failure by, the Taliban operate with varying degrees of competence. Some of those guys are very scrupulously good. Some of them are not.
Andy Field, ABC News, Washington.
That agreement to leave the country forged by the previous administration with the now dissolved Afghan government and Taliban now shattered. The U.S. exiting nearly 20 years after back-to-back missions began. ABC's Martha Raddatz has more.
It is a catastrophic day for the U.S. military. The U.S. military and veterans were already watching in horror what's happening in Afghanistan and so worried about their Afghan allies who helped out during the conflict, trying to get them out.
New data shows the Delta variant is fueling cases and a new death toll in the U.S.
A planning document from HHS shows the U.S. is now seeing more than 800 COVID-19 deaths per day, the highest rate since mid-March. Deaths have climbed 317% in just the last 7 weeks. The data also show there are now more than 100,000 Americans hospitalized with COVID-19 nationwide, and the U.S. is steadily approaching the peak hospitalization numbers we saw back in January. Just 8 weeks ago, there were fewer than 12,000 people in the hospital with COVID-19.
ABC's Mark Remillard. You're listening to ABC News.
Do you check your Google search results regularly? You should. People often get their first impression of you or your business online. Negative comments on the internet can impact your life and your livelihood. Take control of your online reputation. Get your free reputation report card at reputationdefender.com. It may reveal negative posts from an ex-employee, upset patient or client, news article, legal issue, or even exposed personal information right there in your Google search results. Uncover what's lurking on the internet about you with reputationdefender.com's patented scan and get your free reputation report card. Or for immediate assistance with your reputation, call 800-401-6681. Our cutting-edge technology helps make your Google search results look their best. Call 800-401-6681. That's 800-401-6681. 800-401-6681. Or take the free scan at reputationdefender.com.
A new study finds the number of people suffering from high blood pressure has nearly doubled in the past 3 decades. ABC's chief medical correspondent, Dr. Jennifer Ashton.
They found 1.2 billion people worldwide have hypertension or high blood pressure. This number has doubled since 1990, and half, almost about 50%, are unaware that they have high blood pressure. This is precisely why in medicine we call high blood pressure the silent killer, because you can have it and have no symptom.
ABC's Dr. Jennifer Ashton. ABC News being sued by one of its own.
An ABC News staff member is suing Michael Korn, the former top producer of Good Morning America. The lawsuit alleges Korn sexually assaulted her and another woman and fostered a toxic work environment. The suit also names ABC, accusing the company of receiving complaints from several women and failing to take action. In a statement, Korn denies the allegations and says he will vigorously defend himself. ABC News also released a statement that says, in part, we are committed to upholding a safe and supportive work environment. The statement says ABC News disputes the claims made against it in the complaint. Aaron Katursky, ABC News, New York.
California leaders are frustrated with the increase in drug overdose deaths. Now they want the state to be the first in the country to pay people to stay sober. People can make money if they complete the program without any positive drug tests. The governor has asked the federal government for permission to use tax dollars to pay for it through Medicaid. This is ABC News.
The pandemic's reminded us we live in a sea of airborne germs that can assault us with every breath. Your nose is the body's first line of defense by helping filter out allergens, bacteria, and viruses before they reach your lungs. So how do you clean your nose? Navage uses powered suction to flush out mucus and germs that cause congestion, or worse, can make you sick. Over 2 million people use Navage to breathe better, sleep deeper, snore less, and feel healthier without drugs. Go to Navage.com or find Navage at Walgreens, CVS, Rite Aid, Bed Bath, and Target.
Michelle Franzen, ABC News.
News Talk 1040, Tampa Bay weather forecast.
Good afternoon. I'm meteorologist Alan Archer for WHBO Weather Center, where our radar is indicating widely scattered showers, and we'll see developing thunder showers trying to come in from the southeast anytime this afternoon. A 45% chance with a high of 88, 20% tonight, low 77, stronger 55% Friday afternoon and evening with a high of 88, and more weekend storms, especially Saturday. I'm meteorologist Alan Archer, News Talk 1040, WHBO.
Whatever's on your mind.
There's something new in American popular culture.
For everyone.
Real people, real conversation.
Normal conversations that I'd have with my friends every day.
The basis of conversation in the community.
Where Tampa Bay comes home. News Talk 1040, WHBO.
This portion of the upcoming amazing broadcast is brought to you by the law firm of Catania & Catania, award-winning personal injury, auto, and motorcycle accident attorneys, serving Tampa Bay families for over 28 years.
From the heart of Central Florida, you're listening to the most electrifying show in media. A Neighbor's Choice. I'm your host, your neighbor, David Gronowski. So glad to be with you live again for another journey. and our broadcast show live on FM, AM, podcast, video stream, and our website, aneighborschoice.com. We talk about culture. We talk about nutrition, medical paradigm shifts, amazing breakthroughs and discoveries for solutions for diseases long thought to be something we just have to live with. No, we do not. We can use our brains and challenge sacred cows of groupthink. But one of the things we also like to do on this show is to dive into the world of hard sciences to look at things that are even more untouchable, allegedly, by popular opinion. Settled science that are not supposed to be challenged, things like physics and chemistry and things that are more in the hard science field. And so that's what we call on Thursday, our segment we're doing now, Science and You. And joining me to do that is our chief science advisor for the program, physicist Dr. Yu. How you doing?
Thank you, David, for having me on. I'm doing great.
Well, great. I'm glad to have you on again. Now, here's this story in Yahoo called Why Nuclear Fusion is Still the Holy Grail of Clean Energy. So I thought this is an interesting story. We've been following the nuclear fusion story. Why is this? What's the point here in this article that they say this is the Holy Grail? Is this where all the focus should be for clean energy, huh?
Right. So right now, we wanted to develop, clean energy. But within the clean energy, like solar, wind, and all the kind, right? Tidal wave, still think about the nuclear fusion is still the Holy Grail. So why it is say it now? Because it is based on latest discovery or advancement at a national called ignition facility operated by Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory. They use a new way called use a single laser, the hot laser as a trigger, spark a fusion explosion, and can generate much like 8 times better, more energy than previously the facility could ever achieve.
So what's the main takeaway you think is important from this story?
The important it says, okay, so this new method use laser as an ignition method, can generate 8 times more energy based on the use the few particles, use the special particles, few capsules. Okay, but the conclusion is, although we achieved so much, right, 8 times more energy, and generated 1.35 megajoule energy. However, the output energy still is about 70% of energy we use to generate this laser pulse. So we still fall short of the energy to create, in order to create sustainable energy. So we have to input energy has to be less than output energy. But in this case, we still spend more input energy than output together. We only get 70% of the energy we achieved. So the main takeaway for me is this kind of a nuclear fusion approach, the method, even though we achieved so much, latest results, but still fall short of achieve self-sustained energy generation method. So the reason is the whole approach is problematic, and I don't believe this use hot temperature, hot laser, this kind of approach will reach to a nuclear fusion anyway.
So what is the best solution? We've talked about it before, but for, we always get new listeners coming in.
Key question. So right now we all try to achieve self-sustained energy generation, right? with the ignition, and it can generate more output than input forever, right? So we don't have to work on it. And the current method is use hot laser, hot contained. So, the method should never work. But for me, in order to make this self-sustaining energy work, I believe we can use called the tabletop, the so-called tabletop room temperature, the low temperature nuclear reaction. It's not a fusion reaction. In order to create a current fusion reaction, you need high energy. Try to make it work. I don't believe that work. However, using low temperature, low energy nuclear fission. So that's how low energy nuclear reaction. Okay, it is based on fission principle, still split atoms, split molecules, split atoms to generate. Instead of use high temperature, we use called other type of use electromagnetic excitation, create a resonance. Use the right resonance frequency, break the atomic structure. And so maintain the same input, however, can generate a much higher output by split atoms and at a constant vibration state. Or use electricity, create a vibration, or your electromagnetic device, create like a microwave type of device, create oscillation, and use that one to generate to split atom to generate the heat, generate energy. I believe this one can achieve sustainable energy. Of course, we still need to consume certain materials, right? Like heavy water type of certain material. But those are very cheap material and a very low cost and a very safe device. We can achieve them. Some people describe this as a chemical reaction. But I believe we can achieve atomic reaction, a nuclear reaction, with this kind of a device.
Would it have any potential dangers like Fukushima people are worried about?
No. So this is how the fusion reaction is so dangerous, because you cannot control this one. However, for this tabletop of low temperature, use vibration oscillation, use electricity frequency vibration, or use electromagnetic, like a microwave type of oscillation, we can control the input. So if we turn input off, of course you can instantly stop the reaction. However, if you turn it on, as long as you tune up to the resonance frequency, and then you can split the atoms, split the molecules and the atoms, and without way under control. So it should be safe and without nuclear radiations.
Right. I want to turn to this story. I had Dr. Kate Shanahan on. She's a medical doctor that talked about the problems with vegetable oils. She mentioned the way she described it on my show this week made me think of you for a moment, because she said that these vegetable oils, these unnatural industrial waste products like safflower oil, sunflower oil, corn oil, soybean oil, cottonseed oil, canola oil, these terrible products that were never meant for humans to eat, but they're in everything because they're cheap and they've got a lot of government subsidies behind them and misinformation. But these things, she said, she described them as unstable, that these fats are unstable. They create unstable, oxidative stress. And she described it like radiation in the body. And I thought, radiation, I want to ask this comparison to Dr. Yu. This kind of sounds interesting because you talk about how, from a physics perspective, a lot of the destruction of our body is because of unstable particles, right? These charged particles magnetically, you would describe them as, right?
That's right. That's how what is it called, a free base or something?
Free radicals?
Free radicals, yes. Yeah. Those are charged particles. Yeah, unstable.
So can you explain how that might work? Because people have a hard time making the connection between how can something that I put in my body that's an oil create something that's like radiation in my body? That seems so strange. It just seems so harmless when you look at it in a cookie or whatever, mayonnaise or something. How could that create what you describe as charged magnetic particles? What's going on? I mean, you don't have to explain the food part of it, but just from the physics part of what's going on there.
Okay, so first of all, this is processed oil. So why the process of oil is harmful to human body? Okay, so all the natural binding force between atoms and molecules or all the particles in the cell, all the binding force from natural occurrence are not that strong enough. Is relatively weak. So that's why when we consume in our stomach, the digestive system, we can break them. Use acid or use fluid, liquid body fluid. We can break them, so we can decompose them, and we can digest, and the body can absorb them. Okay, that's how normal natural food we consuming, we can do that one. Of course, if you're consuming metals, those natural bond between molecules, between atoms and molecules, that bonding is so high. So that's why a human cannot break down, so that's harmful. That break human organs. The same thing happens to the processed oil. Processed oil, the bonding of the oil, the particles and the bonding is very fine, very strong. So natural human body can use human body's chemistry or electricity are not good enough, not strong enough to break them. So that's why that's harmful. Okay, whether it's radiating, so that's probably based on another property of this kind of oil. So when your body cannot break that bond, so that means you cannot absorb it through normal channel. So what happens? All those particles, they have high bonding, and also all those things have a magnetic field, strong magnetic properties. So what that that means that they have higher bonding, stronger magnetic field around those particles. So those kind of strong magnetic field force can break. Not only you human, you cannot absorb them. It can actually break your normal cell because it have a stronger magnetic field, stronger force can pull the particles in your body away from your organs and to surrounding those particles. So in that case, it can cause sickness. But whenever the normal cell being broke by those kind of particles, okay, those particles actually you can say it is charged particles. When you can break, so those are then the normal cell becomes becomes charged. When the normal particle are magnetic neutral, but if you part of the particle being stripped away from that magnetic neutral particle, it's become a free radicals, become charged. So that charged particle can traveling because it has a magnetic force, interact with any adjacent free radicals, or it can move, it can travel. So that's where causing all kinds of disease. If you stop in the stomach, you will have stomach pain. If you stop in your vein, certain area, you will find that those part of the arm or something, part of that organ pain. So I do not believe that's called radiation. I do not believe that's caused by radiation.
Yeah, she's not saying it's radiation. She just said it kind of acts like that in terms of its effects.
Oh, okay. Yes, that's true. That's how you break a neutral particle. If you have a stronger radical or free radicals have a charged particle, what happens? They strip away part of the body from your cell or your organ tissues. When they strip a part of away, then you becomes magnetized. Because when you electron and atoms electron, that's neutral, right? If you strip away one of them, because of this high processed oil particles, then you have a free radicals that causes all the inflammation.
Let's take a quick break. We're speaking with Dr. Yu on our Science and You segment live on A Neighbor's Choice Radio. Back in a second.
A lawsuit is not something that anyone looks forward to. It's a stressful process. There are attorneys in Tampa Bay that keep clients well informed, creating less stress. That law firm is Catania. Personal injury law is defended with full disclosure. There is no guessing game. If it's an auto accident, medical malpractice, nursing home negligence, unsafe working conditions, or motorcycle accident, Catania will handle the process worry-free from start to finish. Many victims don't realize they have a claim for the loss until they talk to Catania. They only represent private individuals and treat every case as if it's going to trial. Putting families first is more than just a slogan. It's their way of practicing law. It's a commitment to you. Remember, they don't get paid if you don't get paid. So go to CataniaCatania.com. Over 28 years in practice. Catania, personal injury, auto, and motorcycle accident attorneys. Catania, putting families first.
Office Tampa. Not attorney spokeswoman.
Hello, this is David Gronowski with A Neighbor's Choice. I've got a mission for you. I'm a big believer in eating family farm-raised, high-quality grass-fed beef. That's why I'm a frequent customer of White Oak Pasture, a sixth-generation beautiful farm in southwest Georgia. Support sustainable, delicious meat of the highest quality. Ask for White Oak Pasture's beef at your local grocery here in Florida, or go to whiteoakpastures.com, and first-time customers get 20% off on purchases with our exclusive coupon code NEIGHBOR. Who is your neighbor? Dave and Wally are team drivers for Oakley Transport. One day, they came across a very serious accident on the highway. Some might pass on by, but Dave and Wally saw there was no time to waste. They jumped into action and saved two people's lives with moments to spare. That's the kind of courageous love we need more of today. It reflects the respected culture Oakley Transport develops with their driving professionals. CDLA licensed drivers. Join Oakley Transport today for a rewarding career. Visit oakleytransport.com. That's oakleytransport.com.
Fighting high electricity bills in this heat? Call Insulation Plus of Tampa at 813-951-4374. Insulation Plus of Tampa will do a free 10-point attic inspection and show you how adding insulation and solar fans will lower the temperature, which helps your air conditioner work more efficient and last longer. Call today for your free attic inspection and get 10% off an attic solar fan and free attic stairway insulator. Call Insulation Plus of Tampa at 813-951-4374. That's 813-951-4374 and start saving money today.
Neighbor's Choice is back, and I'm your host, David Gronowski, here with Dr. Yu on our Science and You segment, where we look at hard news info and try to make sense of that world as things emerge in the headlines in the world of physics. Here's a story in techexplorist.com. It says, an exotic form of magnetism has been discovered. This is not your grandma's fridge magnet, the story says. Scientists at the National Institutes of Standards and Technology have discovered an exotic form of magnetism in a new crystal. This exotic form of magnetism has been linked to an equally exotic type of electron. The crystal's unique electronic structure creates and protects the magnetism. The unusual structure of the material conducts electricity, yet makes its electrons behave as massless particles. The electrons promote the spontaneous formation of a magnetic spiral. The study reveals a link between the material, the electrons flowing through it as a current in the material's magnetism. In their study, scientists studied a semi-metal made from silicon and the metals aluminum and neodymium. These elements come together to form a crystal, which implies that its component atoms are arranged in a regular repeating pattern. However, a crystal breaks inversion symmetry, meaning that the repeating pattern is different on one side of a crystal's unit cells, the smallest building block of a crystal lattice, than the other. This arrangement stabilizes the electrons flowing through the crystal, which drive the unusual behavior in its magnetisms. And so, anything that we can glean from this story, Dr. Yu, of value?
Yes. So basically, they just discover the new material has an exotic property. It can conduct electricity and also preserve magnetic field. Magnetism. Uses 3 different types of material: silicon, aluminum, and the neodymium material. All the explanations, it's incomprehensible and it does not make sense anyway. So, but it is basically talking about whenever you have electricity, electricity, it is due to motion of a magnetic field. So I do not see there's anything particular. However, this material could be used for future memory storage. It's hard disk storage and could have lots of applications.
So that's another interesting.
I hope I did not.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. I hope I did not lose you.
No. I just look at this headline. We'll have to leave this for another time. It says, angry bees produce better venom, effective treatment for degenerative infectious diseases. So when they're angry and stirred up, apparently they produce more of these proteins that are effective for being used to create more rich, dense bee venom that can be used for disease treatment. I thought that was an interesting headline.
Yes. The angry create a more strong reaction. It reference under strong magnetic field interaction.
Yeah, so their magnetic field is stimulated and it creates more proteins, I guess, right, in the material.
Yes, and taste better or much stronger flavor.
Well, very good. Thanks again for joining us, Dr. Yu.
You're welcome.
That's it for Science and You. Up next, we'll hear from Jeff Deist of the Mises Institute to get his take on this Afghanistan fallout. Back in a moment.
If you're not scared of COVID,
they are waiting for hours.
Dangerous and life-threatening.
The Afghan withdrawal, you should wear a mask.
It's a crazy world.
Delta variant surges.
The Taliban says we are going to see flooding.
Coming across our border, history will be watching.
Frustrated and scared.
Deeply saddened by the facts.
It's our national security.
What's coming next?
When you have people indoors.
But we are here to help you survive it. News Talk 1040. WHBO.
President Biden on today's deadly attacks on U.S. troops in Afghanistan.
The lives of American service members standing guard at the airport and wounded, several others seriously. He had also wounded a number of civilians, and civilians were killed as well.
ISIS claiming responsibility. ABC News political director Rick Klein on the grim assessment today from the Central Command leader.
I thought General McKenzie was a very stark outlining of the stakes and the hurdles, the obstacles at this moment, to say that we know that there are going to be other attempted terrorist attacks on our troops. He says there's no need at this time for any additional military presence. But yes, it raises the prospect of shooting again involving U.S. forces. This is the situation that the White House has been warning about. It is ultimately the worst case scenario that has come to pass.
President Biden saying the U.S. will hunt down everyone who perpetrated the attack. Daria Albinger, ABC News.
News Talk 1040, Tampa Bay weather forecast.
Good afternoon. I'm meteorologist Alan Archer at your WHBO Weather Center, where our radar is indicating widely scattered showers, and we'll see developing thunder showers trying to come in from the southeast anytime this afternoon. A 45% chance with a high of 88, 20% tonight, low 77, stronger 55% Friday afternoon and evening with a high of 88, and more weekend storms, especially Saturday. I'm meteorologist Alan Archer, News Talk 1040 WHBO.
A Neighbor's Choice returns. I'm your host, David Gronowski, and we're here with the president of the Mises Institute, Jeff Deist. How you doing, Jeff?
Hey, David. I'm doing great.
Well, and it's great having you back on the program, although, again, what a sad day as we hear of the violence that is breaking out in Afghanistan. And once again, you know, you've been talking about got to get out of these wars, and so many of the clowns that dominate TV and radio, unfortunately, have been trying to drown out those voices such as yours so that we could avoid this endless series of tragedies that's unfolding right now.
Well, given what I've seen today, I'm not so sure that we're leaving Afghanistan. You know, depending on your source of news, maybe 10 U.S. soldiers have been killed today in and around the airport in Kabul. Joe Biden was probably going to worry very much about how this affects his presidency. He's probably going to bolster our forces over there. I can't imagine anything else. I mean, it's the situation which is out of control militarily in Kabul, and it's out of control politically for him here. So I hate to say it, but the neoconservatives like John Podhoretz, for example, has been tweeting today saying that all of this it could have been avoided, and that 10 days ago everything was calm in Afghanistan, and it's just the fact that we left that is causing the vacuum for the Taliban. And so, you know how politicians are. They're susceptible to flattery, and they're susceptible to calls for action. They don't tend to have much of a backbone when it comes to things which are damaging them politically. And of course, it's more than politics. To be fair, there's a bunch of Afghans getting killed, and now even some U.S. troops being killed. So it's a very ugly situation. And I don't think Biden's got the strength of character, the backbone to stay the course here. My fear, David, and I said this before years ago, is that we'll be in Afghanistan forever, much like we are in Korea. In other words, we've been in Korea since the 50s. And we never left. We set up the demilitarized zone, and we still basically, at least we kid ourselves that we perform a police function protecting South Korea from North Korea, although increasingly South Koreans don't want it. If you poll young people, if you look at what their presidential candidates say, they want the U.S. to leave. And so, you know, the idea that we are going to leave Afghanistan, I think, has been thrown into huge question in the last couple of days.
Yeah, I mean, we got stories of desperate Afghan Christians being turned away at the gates, according to the CatholicNewsAgency.com. Meanwhile, the U.S. provided the names of Americans and Afghan allies to the Taliban. So, according to latest reports, 12 troops have been killed. ISIS claims responsibility in these different bomb hits. And apparently, you know, ISIS and Taliban are not supposed to be allies. So it'll be interesting to see how this works. Is this going to be like America and Taliban are going to join forces? It's like pro wrestling where they change sides every week on the storylines, you know? Now Taliban and America are going to work together to fight ISIS again. Is that the new sequel?
Well, The thing about these groups is that it's very hard for Westerners to really understand the Islamic world, which is a vast world with a lot of sects and a lot of variations on Islam. And so when you send operatives, intelligence people into a country, or worse yet, when you send troops into a country and you think you're getting a sense of things on the ground, sometimes that's a false sense. You can't understand thousands of years of history and culture in a year or a decade necessarily. So this was never our business. We made it worse. There's multiple factions, multiple tribes, which make up what we call geographically Afghanistan. It really probably ought to be more than one country. And at the end of the day, this is hubris. This is blowback. A small group of people were responsible for 9/11. We should have gone after them almost in a mercenary-like fashion rather than a war-like fashion. In other words, we should have treated it as a criminal matter and went after them in clandestine ways. But instead, we treated it as a war, and we invaded Iraq and Afghanistan. That was enormous hubris on our part. And look at us now, 20 years later.
Yeah, and I was talking about the stock performances of so many of these companies that were making money off of the war. It's insane to see the percentage returns that their stocks have grown. In some cases, it's like the smallest is like 330% for Raytheon over the course of the Afghanistan war. Lockheed Martin got a 1,236% return on their defense stocks since the Afghanistan war started. Northrop Grumman got 1,196% return. Boeing got a 975% return. General Dynamics 625% return. So a lot of people have a lot of interest in staying there. Apparently, those zip codes around D.C.
Boy, it's really something that we've accepted this permanent war state, that this is just a constant profession, that this is a constant industry, that we'll always have one or two, at least somewhat hot wars going on, at least police actions going on, if not outright invasions, and that all of these military defense contractors will just be almost part of the government. They're kind of a permanent part of the landscape, although they make a lot more money than actual generals and lieutenant colonels over at the Pentagon. They work awfully closely with them, and half of them used to be lieutenant colonels and generals over at the Pentagon. So it's a tough thing, and I don't know how we get past this as a country other than to take a look at ourselves and say, Americans have to stop being such a warlike people. We have to understand that trying to impose Western ways upon the rest of the world, which, Europe cheers, but they never, very few of these European countries have anything close to the kind of military budget we have. That's why Germany and some of these other places in NATO are able to spend so much more lavishly on their domestic welfare, their health insurance, and that sort of thing. So, we can call it the West, but the tip of the spear is really the United States military. And so we're always the ones chiefly paying for it. And at some point, we have to realize that this is just colonialism, imperialism by another name. Real, old-fashioned colonialism and empire went away in the 20th century, but now in the 21st, we have a new form of it. And it's basically saying, well, we have to have Western-style governance and Western conceptions of rights everywhere in the world, that these are universal. And, we can't allow what we consider human rights abuses or whatever in other countries. And so we have to go correct and fix that. And we've had that mentality so long, and we've spent so much money and cost so many lives, gotten into so much debt pursuing that we've allowed a lot of rot to occur here at home. And that rot takes the form of a huge national debt. It takes the form of a hollowed-out economy. It takes the form of drug abuse and depression and alcoholism in some of the, forgotten parts of the country. And, we at some point, I think we have to realize that America has real problems. We have to accept that and just stop with this ridiculousness overseas.
Well, if we're going to be helping people who are having their liberties destroyed, how come we're not looking at Australia? I mean, 9 News Sydney reports From September 13th, NSW residents that are fully vaccinated against COVID will be given new freedoms. Residents of hotspots can leave home for an hour of recreation on top of their exercise hour, while people in other areas can meet 5 other outdoor. Eventually, they're going to be having you get one phone call too, just like prison.
Well, it reminded me of leveling up in a video game or something like, wow, you've earned this new shiny right. You can get to go outside. I have a couple of friends in Australia, and I emailed them today just to sort of ask whether what we've been seeing out of Melbourne, for example, how bad things really are down there. It's obviously, here's the thing, it's a vast country. It's very different in certain parts of the city versus the countryside. It would be as though if somebody from Australia was to watch footage of Antifa riots in Portland, and then to imagine all of America was like that. So we have to be very careful, of course, making any assumptions based on what we see. But the police violence in Melbourne, where people were out over this past weekend protesting the lockdowns, and police were literally clubbing them with batons from horseback. I was watching that and thinking, this isn't some third world country. This isn't dictatorial China, or this isn't Saudi Arabia or someplace like that. This is what we think of as, not geographically, of course, but what we think of as a Western country, right? Australia is a white Western country, largely. And, they've thrown their Western idea of rights and of due process just out the window completely. This idea that you're presumed sick or you're presumed guilty. That just has no basis in the English tradition of law upon which the Australian system's based. So these are people who have basically lost their minds and who have given up on law and who now live under anarcho-tyranny, which is basically where government can do whatever it wants without recrimination, but people can, are expected to obey by the law, blindly. So I think Australia is maybe the most jarring part of this whole COVID story.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where it's like watching this thing happen in real time. It's pretty disturbing, growing up. You never imagine, when you're a kid, you think, oh, that'd be fun to go to Australia and see their unique culture and, different landscapes and different wildlife and their whole thing. And then to see it turn into, no, you have to stay in the house. You get 1 hour. Now, those guys that got that's 2 hours out to leave their house, Jeff, once the booster thing gets part, if they don't get that, they're going to go back down to 1 hour in the house. 1 hour is all they're going to get outside the house in those places if they don't get the booster.
I guess what was jarring the other day was thinking to myself, will I ever visit Australia again? Right. Will I ever go there again? Or if things fundamentally just shifted where we're going to be constantly under these threats of lockdowns, because look, there's always going to be viruses. We've had all kinds of things just in the past 20 years, bird flu and various Asian flus and this and that. And it is, are we going to have, is this just going to become the new normal? And if the test case is Australia, then yes, it is going to become the new normal.
Yeah, that's a terrifying thought. I don't think anybody wants that to come to a city near you. But yet, that's something that is something that people are salivating for. That's what Dr. Fauci has said. He's repeated many times that he really envies the Australian approach, where they have to wear mask mandates even outdoors by themselves again, and they can't even take off a mask to drink their beer or whatever. Fauci has been saying vocally for a long time, I would love to do that stuff here. So they are chomping at the bit to do that.
Yeah, there's this, don't kid yourself. We have that authoritarian impulse here in the United States. When I saw the news about a province or a state in Australia setting up a quarantine camp out by an airport, and when I saw the news in Melbourne of police on horseback using truncheons and billy clubs on citizens, you know, as awful as that was, I also realized there are plenty of people in America, maybe a majority of people in America, who would absolutely support putting unvaccinated or sick people out into some sort of camp, who would absolutely support the police beating and arresting people who resisted being told that they have to stay in their homes, for example, under lockdown. So, you know, we like to think that America is unique in the world, and it certainly has been. But boy, oh boy, if it's going to stay that way, we're going to have to turn a corner soon. And I think this Delta variant narrative is an attempt by the lockdowners to, you know, prevent us from getting back to normal, because things were really starting to open up. I mean, it's your perspective in Florida is a little different because you guys have been, you know, fairly open. But the rest of the world was really starting to come around this summer, and there was a real sort of a sense of relief and freedom from the masks, and that school was going to be back to normal, and this and that. And I think there's a bunch of people who want to take what is really, by all appearances, a much more minor illness in the Delta variant. People get sick less severely and for fewer days, which indicates that the virus has morphed into something less lethal. You know, that they want to use that as an excuse to keep this going, and that is what's so frustrating.
Yeah, it reminds me of a quote that, you know, they posted on Mises Media Twitter page. It says, from you in a recent speech, oftentimes we fail to recognize that D.C. is an imperial power with respect to the 50 states as well. They're bossing us around just as much as they're bossing Afghanistan around, maybe more.
Yeah, absolutely true, and that's why you're going to see DeSantis attacked every possible way if he sticks by his guns and says we're not going to have vaccine mandates in Florida, we're not going to have lockdowns, we're not going to have masks, we're not going to have people thrown out of work or prohibited from going to a restaurant or using their bank. So we'll see. But if he holds firm, I think he's going to be a hero to millions of Americans.
Yeah, I mean, people all over the world are looking at Florida to see what we're going to do if we can hold the line against this insatiable desire to control and exploit this crisis for really disgusting special interests. Let's take a quick break. We're speaking with Jeff Deist. You can go to the Mises website to check out some of his content and what they've got going on. They have events coming up in Florida you're going to want to pay attention to and put on your calendar. Go to mises.org. I'll be there at those events. Looking forward to seeing some of you. mises.org to learn more about some of the things coming up, as well as read their latest content on the economy. Back in just a moment.
A lawsuit is not something that anyone looks forward to. It's a stressful process. There are attorneys in Tampa Bay that keep clients well informed, creating less stress. That law firm is Catania. Personal injury law is defended with full disclosure. There is no guessing game. If it's an auto accident, medical malpractice, nursing home negligence, unsafe working conditions, or motorcycle accidents, the law firm of Catania will handle the process worry-free from start to finish. Many victims don't realize they have a claim for the loss until they talk to Catania. They only represent private individuals and treat every case as if it's going to trial. Putting families first is more than just a slogan. It's their way of practicing law. It's a commitment to you. Remember, they don't get paid if you don't get paid. So go to Catania.com. Over 28 years in practice. Catania, personal injury, auto, and motorcycle accident attorneys. Catania, putting families first.
Office Tampa.
Not attorney spokeswoman.
Are you ready to transform your career? Jess Smith was too. She was stuck in a job that was controlling her life, consuming her free time, and offering little opportunity for growing her pay. Then she found FinTech Mortgage Association, and she never looked back. FinTech Mortgage Association makes home lending simple, and they take care of home buyers like family.
Using technology to make everyone's life easier, FinTech Mortgage Association equips each of their loan solutions architects with the tools they need to build a career with a schedule they control, a product they can take pride in, and an earning potential that is life-changing. Unleash your true potential. Join FinTech Mortgage Association. Visit finmay.com. That's FINMAE.com. You're in charge now. NMLS ID 1492187. Equal housing lender.
A Neighbor's Choice is back. I'm here with Jeff Deist of the Mises Institute. You can follow him at Jeff Deist on Twitter. And Jeff, I saw that on your website and your podcast on Mises, you recently have been talking about this new book by Mark Spitznagel called Safe Haven, which is how investing and Austrian economics intersect. Could you explain a little bit about this? Because I happen to be a fan of Mark Spitznagel's work. I got his book, The Tao of Capital, and I didn't know he had a new book until I saw you guys talking about it.
Yeah, Mark Spitznagel is a really fascinating guy. He lives and works out of Miami, Florida, so he's a Floridian for your audience. He runs a hedge fund called Universa Investments, like Universal, but without the L. And he's just a really brilliant and poetic and philosophical guy who happens to be very, very brilliant and well-read in Austrian economics. So he wrote a book a few years back called The Tao of Capital, where he combined sort of his Austrian economics knowledge with his interest in Chinese philosophy and the Tao, which is, this is very hard to translate into Western language, and of course I'm no expert, but the Tao, you could say, is a process or is the way, the path of something. So his point was that we think of capital as money and wealth that these greedy rich guys hold and have just magically because they were all born to some country club dad or something like that. And that's not the case at all. In fact, capital is kind of a flow. It's something that's always moving and that it's easily lost and that it has a temporal element to it. It exists over time and space. And so that's why, for example, when you shut down large parts of the economy for COVID, and then a year later, you can't just flip the switch magically and have just as many Honda Accords at your local Honda dealer as you did before. Right. That's not how it works. There are stages of production. There are all kinds of time factors and decisions which people have to make. And so having this longer or more holistic view that Mark Spitznagel explains helps us understand the economy better. Even those of us who are, he's a bit investment guru, and he's not giving investment advice to the average guy or gal like us, who's just doing a little something with their 401k or their IRA or whatever. I mean, he's making big, conceptual, almost philosophical statements about how markets work. But I do think average guys and gals like us can benefit from reading his books and getting a broader worldview, because it really is about understanding the world. And if you want to understand booms and busts, and if you want to understand why the COVID lockdowns were so incredibly stupid and harmful, boy, he's a real leader, and he's a quiet guy. He's a brilliant guy, as I said. And, I think listeners to your show are looking for something different. There's a million of these investment guys out there, the Ray Dalios of the world, and the former Treasury secretaries like Larry Summers, and then the Jim Cramers on CNBC and the Larry Kudlows on Fox, and all these guys are giving you what I would consider a very establishment viewpoint. So if you're interested in how markets work conceptually, how capital works, but you don't want that. You don't want this establishment crap. I'll go ahead and recommend Mark Spitznagel to anybody.
Yeah, and he's also noted for he's got a award-winning goat farm, right? Idle Farms, which is a pasture-based goat farm. They've got, and he says, there's an article I was reading here. It's making six-figure income with 50 goats on 5 acres. So he seems like someone you might want to look at, especially in this time of craziness when people are looking at how to be, resourceful with their land and money,
Well, yeah, he has a particular interest in raising goats and in sustainable farming. He's from Michigan, and so when Detroit had its terrible period of bankruptcy and lots of houses which were rotting and foreclosed, there was a real movement in Detroit to just have farming in these formerly urban areas. And goats are particularly suited to goats are hardy. They can live even in kind of an urban environment. They can eat weeds and grass that's popping up between concrete and everything. So it was a really novel idea which he was involved in. And he's got his own farm up in Michigan near where he grew up. And he's very, very interested in producing a particular kind of cheese, a Gruyere. I hope I'm saying that right, which is a very particular variety. And so he's I think we need people like that in society. I mean, we need people with the money and the wherewithal and just the intelligence to go out and try these different things. I mean, Elon Musk does that to an extent. So I think we ought to view these people, they don't all need to fall at lockstep in with the government and just be part of the system. We need people who are out there doing different things and breaking through and showing us the way.
Wow. When we see all the opportunities for, going back to basics or, going to the stars in the other example, Elon Musk or growing goats, or raising goats, there's a lot of opportunity to get positive and get resourceful in this time instead of just being fixated on the disaster on TV from DC all the time.
Yeah, it's hard. I think we're all guilty of that, following the bouncing ball and allowing ourselves to be preoccupied by it. But a big part of Spitznagel's message in his new book, Safe Haven, is you have to relentlessly avoid the wrong things, whether that's in your portfolio or even in your private life and your time management. How mistakes or losses when you're younger, for example, really compound over time. And so you've got no time to waste. And I do notice about Mr. Spitznagel, successful as he is, he keeps a very low profile, does very few interviews, and does not use social media at all. So maybe there's a lesson there.
Very good. Well, thanks a lot, Jeff Deist, for joining us. It's always a pleasure to speak with you.
Thank you, David.
And check out Mises.org if you want to follow Jeff's work and what they're doing at the Mises Institute. Go to mises.org, or you can also follow Jeff at Jeff Deist on Twitter. I'm David Gronowski. Godspeed.